Joining us now is the head coach at Texas State, fresh off an NCAA tournament bid. Another one for the program. Of high expectations there is Coach Ricci Woodard joining us here on In the Circle. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. Another great day in San Marcos, Texas.
What is it like now? If you've had time to reflect on last year, making the tournament, what comes to your mind?
I felt like last year we were kind of lucky to be there. I'll just be honest. And so I think the goal this year is to make sure that we're not lucky to be there, that we've earned that right to be there. Has been kind of my drive. We've got 9 seniors that are kind of going through their last hurrah, and so you can just tell the focus has been a little bit different and a little bit better. Maybe because of that. When you put 9 seniors out there that have that taste of an NCAA tournament, they don't want to go out without one.
When you say, why do you say lucky in that regard? Is it just because it was one of those things where you were close on the bubble? Is that basically where it comes from?
Yeah. I mean, we were on the bubble. We didn't probably take care of our business as well as we needed to, in my opinion. I felt like we were a definite bubble team, 2 years in a row. And that's not really the spot I want to sit in, Eric. I don't like being a bubble team every year. So I'd like to know going into this thing in May that, hey, your name's going to be called and where are we going to still take care of business. That's where I'd like to be.
But what was it like that selection night, not knowing, and then you do get the call that you do get in and get to go to Austin? What was that like?
I think the biggest thing for me, it was the joy of watching these players that had worked, the last month to put themselves in that spot. We went through a tough spot in March where we just couldn't get things going. Right after we beat Texas and right after we beat Alabama that weekend, things just kind of, I don't know if it was the expectation or the targets on your back but we kept losing a lot of 1-run ball games in that deal. And so, for us to have pulled out of that and come back in a better spot, it's nice to see that kind of payoff piece for your team when they've put in the work to put themselves back in that spot.
135 games last year, made the tournament. 2 years now, in the last 3, you've made the tournament, led by players like Jessica Mullins. It's starting the circle. It always starts in the circle. What can you say about her that hasn't been said? Because obviously her name keeps growing and growing, and had another great season for you last year.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything I can say that hasn't been said. I mean, she's held her own for 4 years at a mid-major. That's not always easy to do. But probably the piece that I appreciate the most out of Jessica Mullins is her loyalty. She's never wavered on leaving here, and I'm sure she's had plenty of opportunity. She's always, I felt like, had my back. I don't feel like she's ever been a player that I've had to worry about that we're on the same page or we're both trying to get to the same place. She's been a Texas State Bobcat diehard for 6 years. Not just the few that she's been here, but before that even. So I think that's the piece that people probably don't talk about the most. But I mean, her loyalty to still be here with what she's done in this day and age is huge to me. Same with the Sarah Vanderfords of the world. To get those kids to stay in the program and not join the rest of the world and trying to looking for something bigger and better. I mean, to me, that says a lot about, the experience they're having at Texas State.
Those two leading this group, and of course, you mentioned you have 9 seniors. I mean, does that make it a pretty special group? It's a tight group. I mean, you got everybody basically back from last year's team. Just describe that. That is unique. You don't see that often.
Right. Yeah, that's the fun part to me is that, I'm not easy to play for. I'll be the first person to tell you that, and I'm sure you could go back through a long list of people that would tell you that. Because Sarah's right. The standard is the standard here. And I don't know how to deviate from that. So my expectations don't change from year to year. So you got to jump in and go, or you're going to get left behind here. And to have 9 kids that, are now in their senior year and their final year of playing, some of them year number 4, some of them year number 5. And I think they're pretty motivated and pretty excited right now. So it's been a fun group to coach. I mean, it's been fun to watch practice some days.
You mentioned Sarah Vanderford, a great kid, obviously got to talk to. Thing that struck at me was she is one that has got no fear. She's the type that, Kat Osterman will face her and she'll be talking smack to Kat, as she told me in the story. What is it like to have her kind of being one of those leaders on the offensive side?
Yeah, Sarah's been the mainstay on both sides of the field. I mean, really, if you watch, I mean, I think D1 softball is the one that put out the defensive side of her, attributions to this place that people are overlooked. But she's as good as a third baseman, probably as good as a defender as I've ever had. So to have her presence on both sides of the field, I think it just helps keep people calm. That's the best thing I can say about her, even as a hitter, is that, she stays just calm. It helps everybody else in the lineup stay calm, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Who would you suggest is the most underrated player on your team that maybe should get more love, to get more, deal there that has contributed there? Do you have somebody or two that you're like, hey, look, I know that player, because obviously Jessica Mullins gets a lot of attention and things like that, but you have other players that are a big part of this success.
Yeah, I could probably go down the whole list of my senior group. I mean, just to be
Yeah,
honest, Tori McCann's got to, pitch behind Jessica Mullins for 4 years. That's not an easy task to do, and still show up and do your job every day, knowing that everybody's talking about somebody else. Um, so I think she's done a good job of handling that. And I think, 5 years into this, she's in the best spot that she's ever been in. So the two are going to be fun to watch. Um, I think you could go around my infield pretty much, and you got a JJ Smith that I'm still waiting to be all go. I think anytime you transfer, it just kind of sets things back a little bit for you for the most part. So watching her kind of be more comfortable this year, I think is going to be fun to watch. But my two sophomores in that group that are probably going to get overlooked the most, and I think Sarah mentioned them. Ended up leading us in the conference last year in hitting, and with Kat Zarati and Carmen Bass. They're both just hitters. And so they'll get in the box and swing the bat. They're going to do a lot of damage. And they're going to get probably overlooked a little bit this year because they're surrounded by a whole bunch of seniors that are really good.
Obviously, you got a lot of seniors, as you mentioned, a lot of veterans back, but you do still have some new faces. Tell us a little bit about the new faces you think you could contribute to this veteran ball club, and the chemistry. Is that something you lean on your player leaders to kind of bring in the new faces?
Yeah, I'll be honest, Eric. When my teams are good, I don't worry a whole lot about team chemistry. It's interesting how we talk about team chemistry a lot when you're not real sure how good you're going to be. When you have 21 players returning, you probably have pretty good team chemistry already. So I haven't really had to worry about it this year, which has been nice. Not that we haven't done some things together. We obviously had the Rangers Astros, dinner at my house, so we could, battle that out a little bit in the state of Texas last week. So, we've done some things, but I haven't had to really hound the team chemistry. Which probably isn't real great for the 5 freshmen we did bring in, because they're in their own little group of 5 for the most part. Not all the time, but they're starting to venture out. But you could definitely tell it started that way for them, probably because I wasn't real worried about team chemistry this year. I have a little left-handed pitcher that I think is going to come in and help us, Maddie Azua. She's out of Round Rock High School. I think she has a chance to help us this year. If not, she's gonna make an impact in the next couple of years. So she's just on a pitching staff that's pretty deep, in my opinion, but she's going to be good. So that's probably the one I'm looking for the most, to see if she's going to be able to break in this year or not. I would guess the other 4 are going to have to buy their time and figure out ways to help us this year. Just guessing.
I'm glad you mentioned the Rangers and the Astros. What is that like? That was always in a weird, intense series where the road team won everybody. Was that awkward? Like, give me the description there, because I'm sure it's a mix. Some of your players are Ranger fans, some are Astros.
Yeah, it was a definite mix. I mean, there's definitely more Astros fans, maybe because I recruit out of the Houston area, probably more than I do anywhere else. But there was a definite, 4 or 5, 6 people that were Rangers fans in there. That you talk about a lot of smack talk, and there was a lot going on during that whole 7-game series. But it was fun. It was fun to watch. Scott and I was like, the whole state of Texas is going to have to shut down for an Astros Rangers series.
Felt that way, at least watching it on TV there.
Yeah.
Hopefully Kat's doing okay there after her Astros held out. I don't know. That could be a little unique. Talk about a little bit your coaching staff. Obviously, everybody, the staffs has grown in the sport. What's your thoughts on the staff you've got, and kind of overall the direction of coaching in the sport, with now most schools having the option to have at least 3 full-time assistants?
Right. Yeah. I got lucky because I was able to pull a 4th assistant. I had to go out and fundraise and do some things to get that and get some people to help us. But I got, a lot of people don't know, I got PJ Broom to come back and be on staff. And so I think, just that dynamic of adding her to help us in the office and to get some things done, on the field, she's done a great job with our catching staff already. I think, that's probably where she's going to spend a lot of her time. But, just that addition to help with and have real help right away, I think it's been huge, because it lets all of us do our job better. So Scott takes over the defensive side of things every day, and he's got to make sure that him and Josh and PJ are all kind of on the same side of that. So I think, again, having that third person in there's helped with that, just to manage the defensive side of things better. But again, I don't think Sarah Vanderford's as good as she is if my brother doesn't come and help us. Right. So, and don't get me wrong, she fought him for a while because, change is hard. So once she decided to go, it's been a nonstop, but he's been really good for us defensively.
How so? How has he been so good for you on the defensive side?
Well, I think he talks a lot about, the better way to do things. We can all do it a way, and there's no way that's wrong, but he's got a better way to do things. That he's just picked up along the way from working with different people and watching Major League Baseball all the time. Obviously, when you get a baseball guy in here, they watch a lot of baseball and you see the way they're doing things. And so, I think that he's just taught them a lot of ways to cut down the amount of time it takes to make a play. If that makes sense. So we do a better job with angles. We do a better job with, glove work. We do a better job with balls off the wall. I mean, there's some things that I think he's just done a really good job of teaching the infielders and the outfielders both the thought process about on game day that makes it a little bit easier.
You've had some great teams. You've had a lot of great coaches around you throughout your career. I get a sense, is this the most fun you're having with a group of players and the coaches there overall? I mean, this group, I know you've liked this group. You told me last year you were looking forward to this journey with this group because you had them for multiple years. You knew that for the most part. Is it as fun as any group you've had? I mean, I know obviously the Randy Rupp teams were pretty fun too, but I sense the joy still. Maybe that's the better question I'm asking. You still enjoy this as you did maybe 20 years ago. Is that accurate?
Yeah, most days I do, but again, when you start working with 9 seniors that are all in,
yeah,
I mean, you don't always get 9 people all in. So, to get 9 seniors that are all in, and then you have a whole nother group that's watching them and learning from them on how to do it. It makes my job easier. That's for sure. And then, and I didn't talk about, Josh Trevino, but I also don't have to deal with pitchers. So that probably makes me a lot happier, just to be honest.
So, well, that's a good segue. Tell me about him and how he handles the pitchers.
Yeah, he does a pretty good job of the relationship piece with them. And so he's not easy on them by any means. But, he expects when they get in the bullpen that they're going to work. But he also has, maybe the age thing where he has a pretty good relationship with them where he'll know things that, we probably wouldn't know if he wasn't here with us because he's 25 and we're all old. Let's just put it that way. So, I think that he brings a not only a good mechanical part to the bullpen, he brings a good relationship piece to the bullpen also.
You got into the tournament in part because of a tough schedule and some big wins. In particular, that one weekend you played at the tournament at Texas, beating Alabama and Texas. Did that, you've always scheduled tough, but did that kind of feel like, okay, I got, we're doing it the right way scheduling wise?
Yeah, I mean, I always try to piece together a decent schedule. I don't want to shy away from competition ever because that's why we do this. If you don't compete against the best, you can't beat the best. And so I kind of always had that thought process. Sometimes I think I schedule too hard and keep us out of the tournament because of that. But I also know as a mid-major, we don't have a choice but to schedule, fairly decently. Now, being in the Sun Belt, I think has helped because I think the Sun Belt's just gotten better and better. So, you don't have to schedule quite as difficult anymore as when my Southland days where we had to. But it's just one of those things where I'm not going to do this if I can't play the best. That doesn't sound fun to me.
Did you feel for Becky Clark because they were one of the first 4 out? You've been in those shoes. I know you two are good friends for a while there, and that had to be kind of the uniqueness of it. You didn't know if you would get in or if they were going to get in or both of you get in or none of you get in. That's a unique situation from the league standpoint.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, especially because she was on that weekly call or that they would sit down and talk about the tournament stuff with. And so it's a little bit awkward when you have to call somebody that you both have a chance to get in, and you're
Yeah.
calling and saying, hey, do I try to play, all 3 games this weekend? Do I try to play this midweek game? Because, we're looking at rain. Is this going to help me? Is this going to hurt me?
Right.
She's sitting in the same spot. So, but the thing I love about Becky is, she's all about the sport, man. And she wants our conference to be the best. So she's going to do whatever she can to help everybody in our conference be the best. It's never just about Becky.
As coaches, as a league, do you feel you got a proper respect last year from the committee? Do you feel you're still looking for that respect? Because I think of Louisiana, who I thought should have hosted, didn't host, and but they used that motivation to win their regional and get to a super. How do you feel as a league? You got multi-bid teams in, but do you still feel like you're searching for that respect?
Oh, definitely. I think we end up, as the 5th or 6th best conference, every year, but people don't see it that way still.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do with what we have compared to what everybody else has in the world. And I think that's what people forget, is that we're not working with Power 5 numbers here. We're working with mid-major numbers here and still being pretty successful as a conference. And I think our conference has tried to continue to help us get better, and find ways to get better. But, to be honest, Eric, people don't realize I've done this for 24 years without a director of ops.
Yeah.
There's just all those little pieces that we're doing, a whole lot better than teams that have everything, in my opinion. And so I think sometimes we get overlooked, and we shouldn't.
No, it's fair. I think that's fair. What'd you think of the league? I remember last year you were kind of intrigued to see how it would all play out with the new members in. Now that you've gone through it that first year, what did you think of the league? How it is with the new members and now moving forward?
Yeah, it's a little crazy. I mean, obviously you had a JMU and a Marshall both, and we get them both on the schedule right away. I'm like, okay, here we go. Um, so it was kind of fun. I'm kind of anxious to see, this year we get to travel to JMU, and so it's kind of a nice excitement piece where there's a little bit different than what you've been doing, but there's also that fear of the unknown. Like going to Marshall, I had no idea what to expect. They'd won a lot of ball games, and so it's like, okay, I don't even know what their facility is, or, and so going in there, we were a little bit probably trying to convince our kids that, hey, this is what we do every day, and let's just go play. It doesn't matter where we're going, type of deal. Is where it doesn't make it like, oh, this is a new place and they won 50 games. And, we just try not to talk about those things along the way, because the game is the game. So I think that probably helped us going in there, but I'm not going to lie, as a coaching staff, it's a little bit tough when you're going to new places in the middle of your conference. Those places have been known to have good softball. So it's a little bit of the fear of the unknown. I'm not going to lie.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Coach, I had Lauren Laporte on. She mentioned the same thing. The thing
Right.
she appreciated was she mentioned you and Becky and other coaches, that as coaches in the league, you all very helpful. Like, you all welcomed her and you all helped it, through the transition, because you all think of softball first, but you want everybody to do well. Where does that come from? Because she says she hadn't really experienced that before. Because, and you know how it works there. I mean, not that, you're all
Right.
competitive, but yet to go out of your way to help them welcome him to the league. Where does that come from?
It's about being the best, and I think Becky and I probably come from the same background in that regard, is that, we want everybody to be good. We don't just want us to be good. We want everybody, the better our league is, the better chance we all have. And again, I think there's a lot of young coaches out there right now that are getting into the mix of this thing when it's tough. And so if I can help guide them in any way, I will do my best to. But some people are just easy to help, and Lauren's one of those. She's just good people. So I think that makes it easier. But I just think the camaraderie in this group as overall has been fun to watch. Some of these people are some of my good friends now. Shelly up at App State. I love going to App State because I get to visit with Shelly a little bit more. Those are people that we just have text messages with. We text each other during the season and be like, hey, good job, or hey, hey, get the next one. So it's just it's got a different feel to it. She's probably right. Even over since when I got into the Sun Belt to now, it's got a different feel to it. But I think we see we're right on the edge of being a really, really good conference, and that helps.
Yeah, she mentioned that. It was just what stood out to her is like, this is a softball first league type of deal.
Yeah.
Whereas before, there's always other stuff to deal with, ahead of softball. That was not the case here. Plus, you did enjoy the fact that you're all meeting in New Orleans, which could be
Yeah, it doesn't
Now
get better than that, does it?
I think for her, absolutely, right? Like you're used to the
Right.
Northeast or whatever they're meeting up there in the conference previously.
Yeah, we took her to have her first beignets, if I recall.
She met, yeah. What is that like? Yeah. So is that a design? Is that like the welcome to the league type of dinner? What are we food? What are we doing?
I guess it was an interesting dinner. Was definitely interesting because there was all kinds of different things. So, um, we just had every other year we meet together, which I think helps. Same people don't ever meet together except at the conference, and not everybody goes to the conference. So it's one of those deals where it's mandatory, and I think that helps when you put everybody in a room together, and you're looking at each other face to face. That who's about the whole conference, and who's not. But I do appreciate that with our league that we do that every other year, as you get to get a different experience from people. Because I'm sure a lot of people on the field don't really want to deal with me, if I had to guess. But I'm really not that bad off the field.
That's great line. Did you have a coach when you entered the Sun Belt that took you under, like you went to, or helped you through the process when you first got into the Sun Belt, or no? No, they were all on your own, huh?
No, no, it was a dog eat dog world when I got in here. I mean, you're talking, Latif and Becky, and yeah, it was a dog eat dog world
Oh
when I
man,
first joined in here. Plus, we were kind of in transition where people were leaving and people were coming,
sure.
so I think that made it a little bit more difficult. But I think over the last few years, it's definitely grown to where we're all in this together.
I believe you're hosting the Sun Belt tournament this year, right? Is that
We are,
correct?
we
What's that?
are.
Describe that, because you've hosted it before. What d- Describe hosting the tournament? Obviously versus not hosting it, and what goes behind the scenes in that process for you.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned. I'm not gonna lie because hosting hasn't really ever paid off for me. I'm not gonna, so. But I also feel like this is probably the best team I'm going to put on the field since we've gotten into the Sun Belt. So that makes me feel a little bit better, which is why I pushed to host. I think when you have 9 seniors, you should try to host. It's just hard around here because it's the same week as graduation, and this isn't a big city. It's a pretty small community where the traffic gets really crazy and parking gets crazy, and so I had to kind of beg, borrow, and steal, but everybody agreed, let's do it. So it'll be fun, but it'll also be challenging because you're playing at home in front of your home crowd, which is always nice. But there's always that back of your mind, we don't want to have somebody else playing on our field and we're not playing still. So
That's got to be extra exciting and motivational, though. If I was a senior on your team there, to think that, you know, I could my last home game could literally be for a title, for a trophy. Not everybody gets to say that. I mean, that's got to be a little extra juice motivational. If I was a player, at least for me.
right, I hope so. I mean, again, I'm trying to motivate them any way possible these days. Because the senior year can go either way. I'll just be honest. I've seen it go both ways, where seniors are pretty much ready to be done and worried about their job and what they're going to do in the future, or they can be pretty honed into, this is my last hurrah, and I'm going to be all in. And this group has definitely been I'm going to be an all in group. Not that they're not worried about what they're going to do next, because I have a lot of those conversations too. But I'm like, hey, if we can figure that out in the fall, that would be helpful to all of us. So I think seniors can go one way or the other, but knowing that you're going to have your last games, no matter what, on your field before you get into postseason play, that should motivate everybody.
You make a great point, though. We forget these are young people, 18 to 22-year-olds, that still have their life ahead of them, and they got life after softball ahead of them. They got a lot going on in their mind. You mentioned it as a senior, you're
Right.
worried about what's next. How do you help them go through that? There's the softball aspect of it, but there's life after softball. They're human beings. That's an interesting balancing act. That's part of the job, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's the toughest part of the job, to be honest. That's what Sarah and I were just talking about. I'm like, one of the things I've learned to do a lot better in my 24 years here is manage people. I think the on the field stuff is just one thing, but managing people has probably been the most important thing that I've learned how to do. And to read people to what's really the issue here, what's going on. And so, like I've had a Jessica Mullins sitting in here and saying, hey, what do you think about this, and this? Should I look at this, or should I just go straight into this? Or I got Sarah Vanderford's here. Do I go into coaching? Do I go into business? She's getting a business degree. Now she's like, do I want to go into coaching? So, I think it's talking through all of those things that, I was like, well, I have an education degree and I'm not sure that, I use it in what I do now. So, Yeah, I think it's them trying to figure out exactly, what does the next future look like, or do we need to figure that out right now? I mean, can you make this last until June, and then we decide what that looks like. I think Tori McCann, that's kind of where she's at, and visiting with her and her parents a little bit. They're like, we just kind of want her to get through the year, and then we'll decide that. So yeah, I think everybody kind of goes about it differently, and the biggest thing is you can't get into March and be freaking out because you don't have a job in June. And that's the thing I'm trying to really facilitate, is that if we're going to work on it, let's work on it this fall and not in March, April, and May.
When you have a player that comes up to you and says, "Coach, I think I want to get into coaching," what do you say to them? What advice do you give them?
I try to be a little bit nicer than my brother. He just says, "Don't do it." Um, the biggest thing I try to do is get them to stick around and be in that role here a little bit. So they kind of get a better feel that's on this side of what we actually really do. So I really think sometimes they think we just show up at practice and that's all we do. So I think, when you get a chance to stay in a program and kind of see how things are done on the other side of the program you are in, you get a real eye opener for what coaching really is. So I don't try to discourage anybody, but I don't really try to encourage them either. I'll just be honest, Eric.
You just tell them what it's like, right? You just tell them
Yep.
it's just good and bad of it, right? That's all you can
Yep.
do. A couple last things. You're gonna be hosting the tournament. Kat Osterman's family keeps, it's got new members now. So the number one, will you have room for her in the tournament now with the newest family member? And B, when does the recruiting process begin with the little one there?
That little one is way out of my recruiting time frame. I could tell you that right now.
All right.
Yeah, I'm happy to have JC and Kat come around and hang out in our dugout. And as I told Kat the other day, now she can crawl around the field on her own and nobody has to stand there and hold her the whole time. But yeah, there'll be no recruiting for me going on with that one. I will be way done by then, Eric.
All right, we got a timetable in your career. That's good. Now we know. We don't. At least we got that verified. What is going to be the key for this group that to accomplish and continue, this upcoming season here as you work towards that before the season will be here in February?
Handling failure better than we ever have. Like, to me, we're mature now, so there's no reason not to handle the failure and just move on to the next pitch. I think that's the thing we struggle with here the most is kids don't know how to fail. So all of a sudden the game's hard and life is hard and everything's hard all of a sudden and we don't know what to do. I'm like, you get up the next day and put your shoes on and go right back at it. That's what you do. But I think that's what got us last year is we just didn't handle failure real well and we just kept sliding down. I think this year, the adversity of the game is always going to happen. So how we handle that adversity is going to tell me how good we are or how good we are not.
Well, we look forward to seeing your team. You're always a fun team to watch, Coach, and always a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for always taking the time to talk to us. Thanks. You're going to get partial credit. You're going to be co-producer for this episode since you got Sarah Vanderford. So big thanks for that as well, Coach. But as always, thanks for all the help and always a pleasure to talk to you, Coach.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I appreciate you taking care of us, Eric.